spike hammer. Alright, this one's a challenge. It's a great way to learn the key of B, and there are a gold mine of transposable licks in this one. So let's jump right in and pick one lick at a time in this piece here. So he starts the break rather challenging with a rather challenging double stop. It's an F sharp and a D sharp on the G string, which is an extended 4. So it's this idea. That's kind of how he kicks it off, which is a pretty challenging thing to do to tune. The way I recommend doing this is you find that F sharp note, and you really plant the F sharp, and then plant the F sharp and find the D sharp from that note. So this is a general rule of thumb that whenever you're doing double stops, you should try to plant the easier note to tune down, and then if possible, only move one finger rather than both. It can help with your intonation. So that's how I'm doing this first double stop. And then just going up the pentatonic scale. It's kind of coming from the pentatonic scale. So, and then the first note of the break, or the target note, I guess, beat 1, is this D sharp note, the third of the chord. And he slides into that note. So that's the kickoff, or the first few notes. Alright, it's pretty quick there. Now, this is, like I said, pretty challenging. If you want to simplify it, you could do... That would be a pretty simple way to do it. That's sliding into the F sharp. Right, that's a pretty common way to start off a tune like this. Or you could do a arpeggio. That's how he starts off Your Love Is Like a Flower. Alright, so there's a lot of different ways. You can also start it like this, I guess. Alright, but he starts it in this pretty novel way. So if you want to take that challenge on, go ahead and give that a try. So the next lick here, we have the essentially first measure of the song you can think about. Alright, great transposable lick right there. So we're going starting at the third, the D sharp, then jumping up to F sharp. And he does these slides where they go up and then down, or sometimes just down. You can mix and match those. So either D, D sharp, D, or D sharp, D. Alright, so you can kind of do either one of those. I think in this moment he just does a down slide. And this is all pentatonic stuff. It's coming from that sound. By the way, that is a Kenny Baker lick that I use all the time. Very good in the keys of B, B flat, A, and even G. That starts on an F sharp and just goes up the pentatonic scale. And then here it goes down to the F sharp. Great little lick. It fits over, fits in spaces very nicely. Or an A, if you start on the E note, you can bring that down, or you can bring it down a half step and get B flat. That's all the same fingers, just down a half step. In A, you have to use different fingers. Starts on an E note. But it's just, if you know your A pentatonic scale, which, by the way, this is coming from what's called A pentatonic extended range. So it's not just this as pentatonic. Right? We have all the notes of the key of the pentatonic scale. Right? And that's the way that you want to understand pentatonic scales to use them in your improvisation. So I have some separate materials that dig into that. It's called extended range. But anyway, if you were doing that in A, it would start on an E note and then jump down to E. Right? Okay, so anyway, that's a great little Kenny Baker lick, and just a mix worth transposing into G as well. So if that's something you're interested in, check out extended range and see if you can work out that lick. But anyway, we did... That's where those notes are coming from. And then the next musical idea is... So this is how he climbs down to the G sharp minor chord. Right? He goes... So that's the moment where he hits the G sharp is the G sharp minor chord, which is the 6 of this key, the 6th chord. All right, so that's again climbing down the B pentatonic scale, which is the same as the G sharp minor pentatonic scale. Okay, if you're interested in understanding how pentatonic scales are related, I'll have a link to information about that below as well. For every pentatonic scale, there is a relative minor that uses the same notes. All right, so we did. Now we're in the G sharp chord. Yeah, here we go. So over the 4 chord the first time, he starts on an E note, which is the 4 chord, the E, and he goes. So he's playing a really cool scale or sound over this. It's the name for that is Lydian Dominant. So that note right there, that would be called a raised 4th. That's why it's kind of jarring. And that's a lowered 7th of the E scale. So such a cool choice for notes here. All out of that E Lydian Dominant sound. The only other time I've heard this sound before is actually in a fiddle tune called the Garfield's Blackberry Blossom, and that's in the key of G, and it really outlines that sound. See, let's see. That's all. It's also Lydian Dominant. So that fiddle tune actually uses that sound, but that's the only other time really I've heard it. So it's a pretty cool sound here. I'll be kind of difficult to play because we have that extended 4. This is a real good one to stretch your fingers. I love what he does here. He keeps those 2 notes down, the B and the G sharp, and then he completes that chord by playing the D sharp, which is the 3rd note of the G sharp minor chord. He plays that down here on the G string with an extended 4. So he gets this really cool sort of sound, and it's really it's that whole G sharp minor chord that he's playing in this little lick. So again, D sharp on the bottom, then G sharp, then B. It's a really big stretch for your fingers. Make sure that B doesn't creep up too sharp. Well, mine did a little bit right there. And then he kind of has these little swing hits on them. Bobby Hicks was really influenced by swing music, and so you'll hear those sorts of rhythms all throughout this solo and all throughout his playing. All right, so that's that G sharp minor moment there. I think he does maybe a down bow and 2 up bows or something to start the next phrase on a down bow. Now, this next phrase, I can't highlight enough, is probably the best takeaway from any solo I've ever learned. This is just a great lick, and I'll show you to play it in different keys. The next thing he does is... All right, it's just a really tasteful lick. It's the perfect amount of time to fit really anywhere. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll transpose it. It starts on an F sharp. This, again, is just... really, it's based on B pentatonic major, but the B pentatonic major scale, if you add this note to it, it becomes what's called the major blues scale. I have a separate video on the major blues scale if that's something you're interested in, but really it's probably one of the most common sounds in bluegrass and country music. So anyway, we have, that would be called going straight up the B major blues scale, starting on the F sharp note. B major blues, extended range, right? All the notes. Right? So we're going up the B major blues scale here, which is also the G minor blues scale. Right? So again, information in the description below about some of these scales. But anyway, this lick here, and then he does the same thing. And then down the scale on a C sharp. Alright, so if you do those 2 in a row, or those 3 little parts in a row, we got. Alright, Right, those are all with separate bows. It's helpful to feel the timing of it. The reason why that feels so good is that it's syncopated. You've got some notes that are on the beat and some notes that are off the beat, and the phrase itself isn't even. Right? So that's what makes it kind of hip, even though the notes themselves aren't that challenging. So let's transpose just that lick right there. If you go to B flat, all you have to do is move the notes down a half step. Okay? And that finger pattern of starting on a second finger, you could also do over a string. If you move it over left from B, we get E. So you can play that over an E chord. Sounds really great. Or E flat, which would occur in the key of B flat, which is not super uncommon key in bluegrass as the 4 chord. All right, or you can move it the other way and you get F. Right, so same fingers. We've already got a bunch of different keys. If you move it up, you get F sharp, which I guess you could use over the 5 chord in B, but I wouldn't say it works super well over that. Actually, I guess it would. There's no problem note. So the 5 chord of B is F sharp, so you could use... Right? But anyway, I like to think about when I find a lick I really like, I don't transpose it to all the keys. I just try the same lick starting on each finger. Because all of the licks that I just played were using the exact same fingers, just moving them around. And you'll notice it gave me, say 4 or 5 different keys. So now I'm going to try the lick starting on another finger. Let's start on the first finger. This would be the key of A, if I start on an E note. So that's going up the A major blues scale. Right? But starting on an E note. So that's what's going on there. It's we're using our second finger for both the C natural and the C sharp note, just like we use our third finger for a low 3 and a high 3. And you can throw slurs in there everywhere. I think I do. I think I slur up on those slides, so it emphasizes the slide. All right, so if we move that to the right on our instrument, we get the key of E. You got the great lick in E. Or if you move it to the left, you get a lick in the key of D. So really just awesome, very easy to play lick that sounds great. All right, so those are the 3 keys we get by starting on our first finger. If we start on an open string, we get this, the key of G. Again, just G pentatonic. That's the G major blues scale, which is 1 note away from the G pentatonic scale. And we're starting on the open D note, which is from the extended range. That sort of thing. We're starting on a D note. Notice I improvise my bowings. There are certain things that work in certain keys. I'm not going to say one bowing works for this. I think it depends on what key you're playing in. All right, so you get a great lick in G there. If you move it to the left, you get the key of C. And if you move it to the right, you get the key of D. So really great keys, very common keys from starting on our open string. We started on our open string, first finger and second finger. We got a ton of keys right there. You could start it on a third finger too and get some other keys like F. Let's see. Not as comfortable starting on the third finger because you have to use your pinky for some of those notes. But you could do it. A lot of people would go to second position and just play it starting on a second finger there. But anyway, you can see that lick right there, really useful. So let's keep moving on in the solo here. The next part is so also a lot of that is good to study as a lick in itself. This is right after. Sorry. He kind of throws that right in there. So what's happening here? Why does that note kind of jump out at you? Well, it's the 6th note of a B scale. So it's called the 6th, and he's playing the 6th, a G sharp, over a B chord. So that's why it kind of punches a little bit, especially because he's jumping range as well. So we're going G sharp B, or G sharp F sharp, and then that sliding down that major blues scale. Actually, we're skipping the C sharp note. And then that's the arrival at the G sharp minor chord again. And the second time he does it, it's basically the same thing. Instead of, he goes, so it's just, you know, basically a different way of playing the first couple notes. So the first one was E, F sharp, E, F sharp. That would be called an upper neighbor. Upper neighbors, by the way, real quick note about them is basically improvisers, the way that they've written down like how to improvise, they use terms like upper neighbor or passing tone. Upper neighbor would be the next note above a chord tone. So this moment is an E7 chord, or it's an E chord. So an upper neighbor to E7 would be the F sharp note. So those notes work as kind of transitionary notes in between chord tones. But anyway, so that's, instead of doing, he goes, it's just a different G, G sharp, G, G sharp. Actually, G sharp, G, G sharp, G. And then basically plays the same lick after that. All right, and now we're basically at the 5 chord. So the 5 chord here is F sharp. So what he does here is interesting. He goes, it actually starts on a B note, kind of as a pickup note, and then we're hitting the C sharp note, which is the 5th. And then he uses his pinky to slide up to the, that is the A sharp. So this kind of outlines F sharp pretty well, the 5 chord. It's often used to either go up or down as a note that's good to play over the F sharp chord, which is an uncomfortable chord to play over, but that's a good way to think about it, using that kind of flatted third or major third. And then anyway, to end it, so he goes. And then back up to that G sharp note we talked about before. Another great lick. Okay, so that's starting on the G sharp note, which is the 6th of the pentatonic scale, or the 6th scale degree. It's in the pentatonic scale. And basically, almost that's all pentatonic. Well, you could do it pentatonic or major blues. The only difference is by one note in terms of what notes are being used. Either D sharp D or D sharp C sharp. One's a little bluesier. Not that different. But anyway, let's transpose that. You bring that down a half step, same fingers. That's a really great note to hit right at the end of a musical phrase. Hitting that note's a really kind of strong musical idea to make, to hit that note strong, because it's a B flat chord, or you know, in this key right now, B flat. Playing a G over B flat chord is a cool sound. I really like kind of slamming into the colorful notes of if you're landing on a flat 7 or a 6 or something. I like to really dig into them or slide into them. So that's a colorful note there. Any note outside of the root 3rd 5th, you tend to have as a more kind of statement kind of note. And that's a really good statement note. So anyway, in B flat, we use the same fingers. If we're in A, or F sharp is going to be that 6th note. So there's a great lick for you. That's all over an A chord. Right, you can hear that F sharp kind of rubs up against it a little bit. So I really love that note. It's a really, really nice one. Again, I forgot to mention you should move these over. So let me go back to the original one. If we move that over one, we get the key of E. So that's a great lick to play over an E chord. And we can't move it over 1 because we need more strings to do that. So if we go down a half step, you get the key of B flat. And if you move it over, you get the key of E flat. Works over a 4 chord in B flat. All right, let's see. We can't move it over. So yeah, I was showing you A. If we move that over, starting on a B note, we're in the key of D. So you can try that. By the way, it's really great to sing what you play and play what you sing. That helps build the ability to kind of do this. You want to be able to kind of, it's the end goal, I think, of musicianship, right? Is speaking through your instrument or using your instrument to speak. So that's D. If we move that over, if we had Bobby Hicks' 5th string, we'd be able to play that in the key of G, but we do not, sadly. I don't. Maybe you do. All right, so let's do one more finger pattern for that. Okay, yeah. So in G, we'd start on our pinky, or you can start on the open E. This one feels a little bit different, but same note. So it's the 6th note of a G scale. And yeah, so he's going from the flat third to the 2nd. So that would be in G. B flat A. So that, if you move over, is a great lick in D. Or a left. That's the key of C. So again, what I'm trying to say here is whenever you discover a lick that you like, what you should do is, instead of trying to transpose it into all of the keys, just try the same lick with the same fingering, left or right on your instrument on a different string, and see what keys it gives you with just those fingers that you already have. And then you can go to try to learn the lick starting on each finger, especially 1st finger, 2nd finger, and 3rd finger, an open string. You don't have to, open string is sort of the same as pinky, so you know, it's basically 4 different ways of playing a lick, and you get all the keys from doing that. So let's see, I think that's all he did. So he just kind of does this little tag at the end. At the end of a solo is where fiddlers kind of make their mark on how they're, you know, it's basically like a little flex at the end of the solo. He could have ended it here. Right, it works just fine. There's a lot of space in between when he finishes and the singer comes up. So that's usually when fiddle players put 1 or 2 extra licks. And he does this. All from the, again, from the major blues scale, B major blues scale, which is the root, the 2nd, the flat 3rd, the regular 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, and then you're back to the root. So anyway, he does a little triplet there. Ba-da-da. So you have to use a slurred bow there. And then sliding down from the major 3rd to the minor 3rd. To finish. And then actually he has 1 extra lick after that. So yeah, so this is a really great one here. Again, think of that as he could have ended there, but now we're doing another lick that starts on the 3rd. So the last part is just that's a pretty common Bobby Hicks thing and very cliche lick. So that's D, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, back to F sharp. Okay, so if we move that, let's take that lick. We move that over, we get E. If we move it over, we get A. Alright, and if we go down, if we transpose it down starting on our 2nd finger, we get A. Great lick. Or move that over. That's D. Move that over, it's G. Alright, and then same thing, let's see if we start on a 1st finger. That would give us G, so that's B flat to B, to D. That's the 6th, and then ending there. Move that over, it's C. Good lick to know. And then move that over, it's F. So anyway, what I mean to say with this one is there are just so many. If you take each individual lick that covers the length of, say, 6 to 8 notes, and you just approach it with the kind of curiosity that I'm approaching it here, I really do think that this solo is totally worth studying, and you'll find licks like these coming out all the time when you're playing. In all sorts of different keys, I find that one kind of just pops out, or some element of it, right? Another thing you could do is take these licks and make them your own by doing what are called micro-improvisation. So you take a lick, you take the basic idea or shape of the lick, and then you try to play it in 5 different ways. Or you take the general idea from it and you try to explore it a little more. So I want to encourage you with this one to take and work on some of these licks, transpose them, approach them with curiosity, and you'll find that these are going to get into your playing pretty quick. Thanks for listening.